The next technique option is using weaving in your project. This could be done strictly for the background and then you're cutting out your drawing and putting it on top of your woven piece. Or it could be something where you're weaving your still life together completely, just like these two images on the right. So I know these are both portraits, but they have a similar idea. If you decide to go this route, what you'll need to do is have your pictures printed 2 times. So you'll need to take a picture of your still life, have it printed out twice. That way you're not actually cutting up your physical drawing, but you're cutting up a printed out version. And you'll need 2 of them, so that way the sizing will be the same and you won't have to worry about adjusting or trying to change the size of your print. So print out your still life 2 times. I will print it for you if you're in class. And then I have a video to show a technique of just the background and then a video to show a technique of putting together the still life if you're going that route, weaving it together. So in this video, I am cutting my still life up into strips, and I'm starting with the first printout, cutting them vertically, and then the second printout, I'm going to cut my strips horizontally. But once I have all of these cut out, I'm going to line them up and put some tape on the top, very tip of it to keep it together or from those pieces sliding around. And then I'm cutting the second one up in the opposite direction. From here, I thought it would be interesting to add a little bit of color to my one row just to separate it from what I'm weaving. So I would consider doing something to make those vertical strips stand out compared to the second set that you're weaving. I'm going to pause this for a second, and you'll notice when I took my first strip, I tried to line it up, and I actually got rid of the first piece and didn't use that, so I could leave the green part from that first piece there. If I had pushed up my first piece, it wouldn't have lined things up very well. So I would get rid of your first little strip if possible and then just move on to the second one. And then when I pushed it up to line things up, I moved it around slightly and just looked at some of the shapes to make sure things lined up the best they could. And then when I started weaving with the second piece, I went every other strip in the opposite direction. So I started with this first one going underneath, so I'm going to have it go over for the second row. And then you'll see I'm just repeating this pattern. So every other, I'm going either above or below to weave this in. And then I decided to just throw in some different colors or different materials. So maybe cut a thin strip of tissue paper to throw in for a little bit of variety, or some construction paper. And then I'm just continuing lining things up, cutting a little bit more tissue paper just to add some of those blue streaks to really add some interest into it. And then I'm completing it with my bottom row. At this point, you'll want to attach it to some sort of background. So I'm attaching it here to some tissue paper, but maybe use like a thicker background, like construction paper or black and white paper. I also decided to kind of slide some of the outside pieces around to give it a little bit of interest versus keeping it all compact. So that's something else to consider, is if you want to slide some of those pieces around. But that's putting together the still life. And now I'm going to show you a video of putting together a background. So I'm going to be doing things the same way, where I'm just cutting up some different strips. I decided to use blue and orange construction paper and then tin foil. And I'm just going to rotate the tin foil every other here. But be creative with your material choice. You could use tissue paper with maybe some cardboard. But I'm changing things up, again, rotating every other strip. And this is where I'll cut out my still life and put it on top of the backgrounds. So this is just, again, a nice, interesting way to change things up and add something different into your still life. So I'm just sliding each of these different pieces up and continuing to repeat the blue and then the tin foil as I go. This, I'm actually just using a portrait as an example here, but for your still life, you'll cut out your still life and then put it on top of this. And then I decided to throw some different pieces on top of parts of the picture, or on top of the portrait, just to make it fit in that space a little bit more and give it some dimension. So that's something to consider as well.